Okay, welcome back to day 2 for the FuturePrint virtual conference. Before I introduce our next speaker, or our first speaker of the day, Rob Carston, I'm just going to give you a little outline of what to expect later on. As you know, the theme is adaptability with technology, and we've got some great content to follow. So today we have Epson, we have Cavalan, Rico, .exact, vPress. In the middle of the day, we have a speaker Q&A live session. Then we have Solomar Systems, Industrial Inkjet, Sun Chemicals, ZAR, and Meta Additive. Joining us afterwards is Actiga North America, McGrew Group, and then finishing off the event, we have a live speaker Q&A hosted by Richard Askham. So there's plenty to stay online with us after, or take part in the replays, whatever, and the special live events. But kicking off the day is Rob Carston, who's EMEA Director for Phoseon Technology. And it's a great story because I've heard it. It's superb one to kick off this day because it really is a story of adaptability. And Rob, it's strange times, or how I learned to stop worrying and embrace the pandemic. That's right?
That's right, Marcus, yes.
Excellent.
That's very good. Do you want me to kick off? Yeah.
Kick off,
That's
yeah,
great.
over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Here we go. Share. Let's go back to that. Great, yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join me on this presentation. My title, as Marcus pointed out, is Strange Times, or How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Embrace the Pandemic. I'm going to just give you a quick overview on Phoseon, what we are and what we do. So we're the world leader in LED solutions for industrial curing, for UV adhesives, UV coatings, UV inks. So basically what our technology does is enable new capabilities and processes worldwide. So we're into digital inkjet, flexographic screen. What it doesn't show here is we also have a substantial business growing in life sciences as well, for drug discovery, high throughput imaging, and all these sort of things. So that's a little bit about us. So let's go on to about the pandemic a little bit, and about adaptability, and about dealing with crisis. So what was my first reaction to COVID? Well, I guess it was pretty much like everyone else's. After all, what did I have as a reference? You know, the Spanish flu was 1918. That was well before my time. So, you know, like the rest, I think then came the denial. Yeah, it's no worse than a bad cold. You know, it'll all be over in a couple of months, etc. Well, that didn't really pan out, and the reality started to sink in. This is not going away anytime soon. So it's crisis management time. We need to rethink how we do things. So this made me think about a previous crisis I had faced. And so let's go on a journey back in time to the 14th of April, 2010. So like a typical family holiday, you know, we're enjoying ourselves. We've gone to Morocco. We've been to Marrakesh, Essaouira, and a few places like that, seeing the beautiful Jardin de Majorelle, Essaouira, the Marrakesh and the souk, the goats and trees. There's my lovely family standing in the Atlas Mountains, and then us doing a very touristy camel ride, and my sincerest apologies to the camel on the left, who obviously had to suffer a lot more than the rest. So we're enjoying a lovely holiday. Highly recommend Morocco. It's great fun. We were there for about 10 days over that period in April. And then this happened. The unexpected happened. And to all you native Icelandic speakers out there, I believe that's pronounced Eyja Flateyjardkot, blew up, causing the Icelandic Ash Cloud, which covered a significant part of the Northern Hemisphere. And as subsequent, we were here down in southern Morocco, towards the desert, in a very desert area. And that was the day before that we were due to leave. So that happened on the 14th, our flight was on the 15th. So we got up very early the next morning. This was clear things were not going to be normal, and made sure we were at the airport bright and early, about 6 in the morning, which was, I think, about a 2.5-hour drive from where we were. So that was an early day. And an unsettled evening, trying to figure what might happen. And then this is what greeted us at the airport in Marrakesh. Basically, everything was being annulé, retardé, cancelled in English. So, I'm standing there with my wife, 3 young kids. We're about 3,000 kilometers away from home. This is not going to clear up anytime soon. So we have to start thinking about how are we going to adapt to the situation? How are we going to work around this? Not unlike how many of us face the situation currently. What can I do? So the first phase for us was adapting. So how do we adapt to what's going on around us? So the first thing we do, what you should do, assess the situation. What are the opportunities? What are the solutions? Flying wasn't the solution. It was going to be a week plus before there'd be another 5 empty seats on a plane going anywhere soon, especially with the thousands of people on standby. The only real option that we could think of at the time was getting a train from Marrakesh. So we decided also that one of the most important things for us to do with the thousands of people of backlog that was building up is what I called the first mover advantage, which was about the speed of adaptation, your ability to adapt, and the resources you have available and making the best use of those. So for me, that means hesitation equals indecision equals lost opportunities. And you can translate that into business, to this current pandemic, to our situation there. But we felt it was better to make a decision than not. So we decided to get in a taxi, go to the Marrakesh train station and get a train to Tangiers. From Tangiers, we could get a ferry over to Spain, and then at least we'd be in Europe, and then we could figure it out from there. So that's what we did. So we made decisions on the move. It was a long train ride. I think it's about 12 and a half hours. We stayed calm. I think it's never a good idea to panic in a crisis. It's a good idea to stay calm. It's a good idea to assess and make the best use of the resources you had available. And for us, one of the most important resources that we had available at the time was our mobile phone. Lucky enough, I had a battery with me as well to back up the phone. And then teamwork, keep it interesting for everyone, keep everyone busy. We had the kids doing things, trying to figure out stuff, helping decide what we should do, and then moving along at a pretty quick pace. We had a bit of luck along the way, but it was only really by asking the right questions. And I think it's the same in business. You've got to ask a lot of the right questions to get the right answers. And we kind of use this process in Phoseon called discover, diagnose, design, deliver, where you discover, with the customer together what the issues are, how you deliver, diagnose those issues, then design a solution and you deliver those solutions. And then you follow up on those. And that's kind of a process that we have internally that works. It's not about pushing lots of presentations on people's throats. It's more about developing a dialogue and an understanding of the business that you're dealing with and how you can adapt your solutions to fit their business. And it's proven very successful for us. So the journey. So here we are, all the way down in the southern tip of Morocco. The first leg of the train journey took us either to, I can't quite remember whether it was Casablanca or Rabat. We had to change trains. And then we got a train about 9 o'clock in the morning. We ended up at Tangier at about 9 o'clock in the evening. I think the last ferry went at about 10. So that was quite critical that we got there in time. To a port, the typical sort of ferry port, and dark at night, and it was a bit unsettling for the children. A lot of cultural differences, things that you have to kind of understand. On the train journey, we had some interesting experiences. At one stage, our carriage was occupied with loads of Berber women in their blue traditional costume with their children, and they didn't speak a word of English. I speak some French. They spoke a little French. So we were able to communicate a little bit, and it was very interesting. They're absolutely fascinated with my daughter, who has blonde hair, blue eyes. Obviously, that's It's very interesting for them culturally, and also the two boys have got reddish hair, which is also kind of odd for them. So they were fascinated, and they were with us for about an hour, and they got off somewhere. So we arrive in Tangiers. We managed to get tickets to get over on the ferry as foot passengers. We arrive in Algeciras in Spain at about midnight. So everybody's a bit tired at this stage, and we found a very helpful taxi driver who just drove us around to hotels until they found a place with a room for 5. And then it was up early the next morning. Oops, something's gone wrong there. Oh, there we go. Sorry. It was up early the next morning getting a hire car. Actually, it was one of those times when having your memberships for things like Hertz and all these things really paid off dividends. And was able to ring Hertz as a gold member, got a car. You know, cars were precious at that time. They were hard to get. So we managed to get a Golf, which for 5 of us and our luggage was a squeeze, but it was okay. And then we drove from Algeciras to the border at San Sebastian. So that was about 11, 12 hours, over 1,000 kilometers. Driving flat out basically the whole way. And at San Sebastian, I dropped the car, got a taxi over to Biarritz Airport, picked up another car from Hertz at Biarritz Airport, drove back to San Sebastian, picked up the family, and then we drove on to Bordeaux. And at that stage, I think we'd been driving about 15 hours, and we were really, really tired. The kids were great, actually. I must admit, they were, trying to entertain themselves and look after themselves. My wife's frantically at the back, trying to phone hotels, trying to find somewhere for us to stay for the night, trying to figure out how we're going to get from Bordeaux home. And one of the things, I guess, an option. So again, looking at all the different options that were available to us, trying to figure out the best, the one with the best outcome. When we got to basically look at the map, Tours is the point. You're either going to Paris or you're going somewhere else. And in the end, we chose to go to Cannes. Now, I have family, cousins living in Paris, which we could have stayed with. But the problem was the trains, the Eurostar, the ferries, the prices were going through the roof. It was going to cost us about £2,000 to get a train or a ferry crossing from that part of France, from Calais or somewhere like that. And we were able to get I think it's Brittany ferries that go from Cannes over first thing in the morning to Portsmouth. So we decided to do that, and which was very interesting. So we arrive in Cannes the next morning to get the ferry, and we thought, right, we'll drop the car off at the Hertz Center. There were cars everywhere. There were about 15 or 20 people standing in the queue to get the bus to the ferry terminal. I looked at my wife and I went, no, this is a mess. Come on, let's just go to the ferry terminal. If we have to pay extra, get the car sorted out, and then that'll be fine. Anyway, so we drive to Ouistreham, where the ferry actually goes from. And we turned up there. And if we thought it was a mess back in Cannes, well, it was 10 times worse. There were hundreds of cars that have with license plates from all over. They were parked up on the verges, everywhere you could think. They were starting to park them in the lanes for the ferries. There were that many cars. There was a poor chap in the tourist desk who sat there, and he had a pile of keys like this, about a half a meter high or a meter high of keys from cars with bits of paper stuck in them. And people are just dumping them on his desk. And he's going like, oh no, don't do this. I don't know. I don't want to know. And he's kind of like, I'm not responsible. I'm not responsible. And everybody's like, oh, sorry, mate, got to put them somewhere. And so anyway, it all worked out in the end. So we get on the ferry, and now we're on a ferry with, I have no idea what the capacity of a ferry is, but I'm sure it's a few thousand people on there. By the time and there's lots and lots of foot passengers, of course. And so we kind of park ourselves over by the exit door, and we thought, well, we've got to get out of here because we're going to arrive in Portsmouth about 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday. I said the chances of getting a train to London or anywhere, you're scuppered. Maybe we need to try and find a hotel, but of course we've got no way of communicating with anyone till we get there. So this is, again, this is about dialogue. It's about discussion. asking questions. We get talking to another family. It turns out they're sat next to us. They've got a couple of kids. They're kind of amusing themselves with our children. And we get talking, and it turns out the guy's from Portsmouth, and he has the phone number of the local taxi company. So here's resources, here's about asking questions. Here's about finding out things and adapting. So we get within reception range of Portsmouth. The guy hands me his phone. I phone the local taxi company. And again, this is one of the problems. For those of you that have 5 kids will know taxis only take 4. So you always need something different. So I had to get a minibus, but it worked out. So the guy, the minibus, he understood the situation. He said, look, it's going to be a mess down there. They said there'll be hundreds of people looking for taxis. I'll just wait up the road because he said they'll swarm on me like a flock of locusts if I drive down there. So he said, I'll wait up the road. I'll have your name in the windscreen. And he said, when you're down and out of the building, give me a call and I'll come down and get you. So we did that, which was wonderful, really. It worked out fantastic. I think there were a lot of people wondering how the hell we actually managed to do that. So minibus comes down, we get in it, off we go to Gatwick Airport. Arrive in Gatwick Airport. We arrive in Gatwick Airport, and it was like a ghost town. So let's just go on to the next stage. So about adapting to the pandemic. So we were very quick to adapt on our journey, and we were also very quick to adapt at work. I mean, this is an important part of how, I guess, we assess the situation as a company. One of the things that's been very interesting for me about this pandemic is looking at how companies have what I've called the power to pivot. How McLaren went from making Formula One cars to face masks. How Dyson went from Hoovers to respirators, and how they managed to make that complete change in mindset, which was really interesting. It was great to see. And we had to change how we did things as well as a company. So, in terms, especially with the way things were. And I think what a lot of us has found as companies is that we're much more flexible than we thought we could be. And that, we get very tied into our existing working practices. And this in many ways has forced change on us much more rapidly than a lot of us would be comfortable with. But it has forced that change now. I think a lot of that change is here to stay. I think there will inevitably be a turn back to some of the working practices we had before, but I think we will continue to have a more flexible working environment going forward because of this. I think that's here to stay. So we all at Phoseon basically started working from home a couple of weeks before lockdown, the full lockdown, because we could see what was coming. So we had an internal discussion about this at management level. So we used the time to prepare. We made sure everyone's software was up to date. We made sure that everyone had the fastest possible broadband that they could have locally, got everyone to upgrade to higher broadband where they could. We made sure everyone's equipment was up to date, webcams, laptops, monitors, microphones, lighting. We created a suitable backdrop like the one I'm using now. We made sure that people were all signed up to the corporate accounts. I think we already had Teams, but Zoom and Skype, et cetera, because many companies are using different platforms and we had to be able to access all of those. So that was the important thing. I think the biggest question we had really is how do we maintain communications? How do we maintain our business activities, our connectivity with our customers so that we could continue to drive our business forward, to try and innovate and do all the things that we like to do. So here's a few pictures of us in the train with the kids, all trying to, ultimately on the ferry. You can see the torture looks a bit fraught at the end there. But so we arrive in Portsmouth and we're at the final leg, and it's 3,000 kilometers and then finally home. So Portsmouth over to Gatwick. Like I said, Gatwick was a complete ghost town. It was very strange. I mean, our car was 3 days late picking it up. And I said to the guy, at any charges? He said, oh, mate, don't worry. He said, just take your car and go. So we got the car. That was about midnight, I guess. And we drove the last leg home. We lived just sort of south of Cambridge near Saffron Walden. And that was another just under 2 hours to get home. And it was pretty much 3,000 kilometers and home. And we all just fell into bed absolutely knackered. So that was an amazing journey. I learned a lot from it. We still talk about it a lot as a family. It was like, oh, do you remember the Ash Cloud and all the things that happened on that journey? I mean, I could go on for this for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, with all the detail about all the things that happened and the fun and the people we met and spoke to. And everybody was sharing information about the latest. Have you heard this and that? We bumped into guys from Deloitte whose, corporate secretaries were giving them details about the best routes back and don't go here, don't go there. And it was funny, when I talked about hesitation earlier, there was a family that we befriended on our holiday at their last place we were at. And they decided, no, we're going to wait and see what happens. And well, we were home in 3 days. It took them nearly 2 weeks to get home. And they were, again, a family of 5 with 3 kids. So, with the benefit of hindsight, we feel we made the right decision. Obviously, there's a cost involved in doing all this. Fortunately, our insurance covered most of it. So what has the pandemic taught us and how does LED help? So I suppose at some stage, I got to kind of bring a little bit about what we do into this. And the pandemic is forcing and accelerating change. The changes are ongoing and here to stay. I mean, there's no turning back. There's no reset button. Change equals opportunity in working practices, in manufacturing processes, and in communications. So FuturePrint is a great example of how, I think Marcus and the team did a great job of adapting very quickly to the opportunity that arose through this. And it's providing a really valuable communication tool to people that I think personally works really well, and I'm really happy to be supporting. In terms of digitization, the opportunity is accelerated digitization, which through things like late-stage customization. LED is a digital technology. And from that point of view, it's a perfect fit with digitization. And if we look at another big issue, which I know Bobst has brought up in earlier presentations at previous FuturePrint events and other companies has discussed, and is very high on a lot of people's agendas, which is about Industry 4.0, which is really the convergence of digital technologies and manufacturing processes. So we feel personally our technology is a really good fit with this. With LED, process control, LED gives better control. It's just a more accurate type of technology. It gives better yields. Data flow, LED is a stable, predictable technology. It can be run in dark rooms. It can be run remotely. So it can be monitored, communicated, and controlled remotely through the Internet of Things. So it's very stable, it's very predictable, it's very reliable. And another great thing about Factory 4.0 is you want systems that require minimal or predictive maintenance. And again, LED, digital technology, has little or no maintenance. So you want to be able to run a system as predictably as possible with as much data and control as possible. So the pandemic exposed the need for manufacturing to shore up resources now. I think that was very important. But the companies that thrive in the future will take lessons learned during the crisis to build more agile, resilient, and modern supply chains that support innovation. And to some extent, some of that will involve reshoring some manufacturing back to this country. And I think, again, the digitization, inkjet, those type of technologies are going to prove a very important role in that going forward. The other area that I think is very important going forward, which has, I think, also been brought about through the pandemic, is people's understanding of the environment and about sustainability. And it really has brought to the fore the people's understanding about how important our environment is. So sustainability is a growing agenda with many of the large OEMs, many of the large brand owners. the green initiative, and the growth in its importance is accelerating. I know that at the moment we're looking at a contract for a supplier, and they want to know all about the sustainability issues around our technology. How do we benefit? How is that quantified? Where are they going to see sustainability benefits from our technology, so they can reflect that through into their brand message? And that's really important. And these people are not messing around with it anymore. This is not a side issue. So LED technology from Phoseon can play a key role in achieving sustainability targets. And we all talk about the energy saving, low carbon footprint of the technology. There's certainly less material wastage. There's much higher yields. But again, it's an entire presentation in itself, going into about all the details of how we can benefit, in terms of addressing people's green initiatives. So again, that's a conversation to be had separately by anybody who's watching. If you're interested, please reach out to me or any of our salespeople. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. But we're a very eco-friendly LED curing technology, so that's very important. And I think that kind of where to from here. That at the beginning of the pandemic, we had to focus on business continuity, especially in core activities. So we adapted by controlling costs, driving productivity, improving efficiencies. Like I said, getting ourselves ready for the new normal, as we were calling it. We had to do a lot of implementation of COVID safety measures. It became a priority over innovation and growth. We were lucky in that Phoseon was considered a key industry in America. So we supply a lot into the medical industry, medical packaging, medical device assembly, with our life sciences on drug discovery and vaccine research. So we were allowed to stay open as a factory, provided we put all the COVID safety measures in place. So as we adapted, innovation at first difficult when R&D teams are dispersed, actually became an opportunity. So it was interesting. Everyone was dispersed, but not traveling, which is a common problem when you're trying to reach out and contact people and get people around tables or around monitors, in this case, to discuss. So we took advantage of that, and we were able to kickstart some key projects, which look very, interesting for us for the future in new areas and applications for our technology. And also, obviously, the pandemic has really accelerated a lot of things for our life sciences side in terms of drug discovery and vaccine research and disinfections, sterilization, and those types of activities. It's been a real boost for us. So in the end, what will happen? Most will return to business in a new way. I guess once the situation stabilizes, which hopefully it looks like now, we're certainly in the UK, we're starting to get to that point where it looks like there's a plan. We could get to a stable situation by this summer. Our core business is secure, and the path forward is clear. I mean, this is what we need in order to reestablish our businesses. In some ways, it's not unlike the world post 9/11. Lots of things changed in terms of security at airports, travel restrictions, and it was all a problem at the time. But we adapted. We had to adapt, and we did. So I kind of leave you on that note, and then I'd like to thank you, and my apologies to Stanley Kubrick for the inspiration for the title, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. I've already had a couple of texts from people that I know that said, "Oh yeah, you must be a Kubrick fan." So, Marcus, hopefully that's kind of been of interest.
Brilliant.
It's my personal story. I hope we kind of tied into what's happening at the moment and how we can learn and adapt and take advantage.
No, I thought it really good, and some key takeaways there. Really, not least, I've never seen goats in trees before. So that in it, that in itself is a story of adaptation, isn't it?
Yes.
That's amazing. I'm assuming it's for food feeding. They're not just randomly sitting there. No. So that was really interesting. And some takeaways really. It's not dissimilar to the journey of innovation, is it? In terms of you're moving forward, but you're moving around all the time. You're sort of solving problems as you go, seeing where opportunity might arise. Another thing is you mentioned hesitation. You clearly differences in performance there between you and your friends in terms of time it took. First mover advantage. What also I liked from it was by keeping moving, you get lucky. By being positive, you get lucky, and by putting that energy out, I think it's a key thing. So no, I think it's really, really good. If they want to people want to contact you, it's rob.carston@Phoseon.com. So thanks so much for that, Rob. Great presentation, and look forward to seeing you later in the Q&A.